Okay, I'm going to ask you a deeply personal question.
Okay.
It's going to piss you off, and if you want to kick me out, I understand.
Okay.
Godfather 1 or 2?
Oh, God.
You were always really kind to me, man, and I appreciate you always just letting me geek out and have nerdy conversations.
No, you're always very insightful. I love talking to you.
I appreciate
Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Adam, good to see you again, man.
Good to see you again.
This is obviously a film about a dreamer and a visionary in a creator of worlds. I think it's safe to say that you have been directed by several of those in your career.
Yeah.
I was wondering, thinking back to your experiences with Steven Spielberg and Martin Scorsese and Francis Ford Coppola, how much of those experiences found their way into this character?
I didn't think about that, but it was mostly because of they're very different filmmakers. The one thing that they, I think, have in common was the sense of improv and finding it on the day, even though it's a medium that is capturing something in perpetuity. You know, that even the image of the poster was something that came out of an improv, which you would think that Francis, having been trying to work on this, and same with Silence with Scorsese, was something that they've been working on for 20 plus years, and still on the day they're not set in feeling like they have a right answer or that their resume speaks for themselves and they are going to be dictatorial. He's like so collaborative, more so than anyone I'd ever worked with. He sets up a world where you can't make a mistake, so you feel like you're. The first day of shooting, his first piece of direction that I remember was, "We're not being brave enough," and I'm like, "Oh, that to me that set the tone for the rest of the film."
That's a cool note.
Yeah.
What does that tell you as an actor? What sort of adjustment do you make from that?
That don't go farther, or that you don't get set in an idea. You know, that you try something and it's film, and if it's bad, we'll just erase it. You know, like it has to be worth it, and. We don't want to leave any stone unturned, or people don't get in your heads too much, you know.
I love that.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, whenever I finished watching this movie in Chicago, one of the first things I thought was, did I just watch an autobiography about Francis Ford Coppola? Like, it feels like you could draw a lot of parallels between Caesar and Coppola.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of values in it that Francis really, you know, just the idea that he feels that human genius is something that should be celebrated and isn't something that we have to be demure about, or like, you know, and just being optimistic, even at this point in his life and career, that it's not a movie where it's like, you know, a dystopia. He's trying to create a utopia, and the only way to do that is to have conversation. It's a very lofty idea, but it never gets stuck there. It's still entertaining, and there's so many things that are Francis in this film.
So to that point, if there are things that are Francis in that character right there, I do this nerdy thing where if I know I'm going to speak with a director who I love, I go through and just rewatch all of their films to get ready.
Yeah.
Is there value as an actor to go, okay, I'm going to be working with Francis Ford Coppola. I'm going to be playing a character who somewhat resembles him. Do you go back and sit down and rewatch The Godfather or The Conversation or is there value in being refreshed on his filmography?
Yeah, because oddly enough, it was more interesting going back after we had worked together, because now I watch The Godfather and they're like, there's no way that they could have staged that. Obviously the films are the directors. But how he got to staging it, the feeling that movie is, now that I know Francis, like there's no, it's clearly theatrical. He clearly set it up and gave a lot of people this, like, you know, percent in his stock, and they felt like because they were invested, they were more free to get the performances that he got. You know. I've learned more about him going in those movies, going back and rewatching after I work with him. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a deeply personal question.
Okay.
It's going to piss you off, and if you want to kick me out, I understand.
Okay.
Godfather 1 or 2?
Oh, God, that's a hard... There's shots in The Godfather 1 that I think are amazing, but it's impossible. And I'm not being diplomatic. It's really impossible to pick one or the other.
Speaking of shots, whenever this movie just started rolling, instantly I was like, oh, this has to be seen on an IMAX screen. It has to be seen on IMAX.
I agree. Yeah.
If you could see any past moment or sequence or scene from a Coppola movie, projected on a massive IMAX screen, which one would you want to see?
I'd say maybe the final raid in Apocalypse. I'd watch
Ooh.
that. Yeah.
With Brando?
Yeah, killing the calf.
Yes.
I'd watch that on IMAX.
I'd love it. As they're giving me the rap, I'd love to know, as someone who spent time serving in the military, did you have a relationship with Apocalypse Now at that time? Do you remember feeling one way or another about it, just from the nature of being someone who served in the military?
No, I mean the irony is that movie is an anti-war movie, and it's definitely appropriated as like the kind of the opposite in a sense, where the sequence, actually that's probably even a better sequence.
Right of the Valkyries?
Yes, of course, yeah. As the as kind of a a morale boosting sequence. I was trying to avoid saying sequence 3 times in the same sentence, but no. Other than that, it wasn't something that I would watch often when I was in the military. It was like, okay, I'm going to go watch the Valkyrie and go to work. No, it wasn't something that was like, it was one of the many things. Like Full Metal Jacket is in the same world.
For sure. But it's so interesting because to your point about not being stuck to something on the day, Coppola tells a great story about Apocalypse Now kind of just made itself as they were going down that river and they figured out what it was going to be.
Yeah, the smoke bombs and stuff, and like all the kind of the purple smoke. They were kind of shooting it and being like, "Oh, that's really interesting. Let's shoot more of that." And that's kind of what this was, where it's like, "Oh, I'm going to let the film kind of tell us." Obviously, if he made it when he first started, it would have been a totally different movie. If we made it now, it would be different than what it was when we made it. I don't know if the cast would be the same or but he's in very instinctual, theatrical director, and in shooting it, it felt like experimental theater, and you were very aware that this many elements to come together like this is never going to happen again.
Dude, that's why I flew myself out. That's why I'm here. Adam, I just want to say, dude, you were always really kind to me, man, and I appreciate you always letting me geek out and have nerdy conversations.
No, you're always very insightful. I love talking to you.
I appreciate it. Well,
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
good to see you again.
Where we're going, we don't need roads.